Welcome to Biemethia vs. Zalga. This is the Craglorn dungeon that I've been taking characters through. First a Sorcerer and then a Magicka Templar. Biemethia is a Stamina Templar, which is a new build type for me. So in part this is a training run, and in part it's just showing how things can be done. So her build starts with Focused Aim. It's a basic AoE, or a basic damage attack. It also inflicts minor fracture. Venom Arrow is a damage over time, and it's an interrupt. Biting Jabs is a standard Templar ability. It grants major savagery, and it's an AoE. Bombard, also an AoE, but ranged, and it roots people in place. And lastly, Breath of Life is Biemethia's defensive ability. It's not the greatest in this case, at least not compared to a Magicka Templar. Ice Comet is her ultimate, which, again, as is typical in these builds, I don't use. Switching over to her other bar, she has dual wield. She double bars Breath of Life. Repentance gives her more recovery, and lets her drain health and stamina off of dead bodies, which is a key ability. She has Biting Jabs double barred. Deadly Cloak gives her AoE protection, and lets her throw a damaging blade, and Flying Blade gives her major brutality. Panacea of Stamina is just the regular kind, the ones that you find as drops. That's not particularly great. But let's see how she does. So we start off a fight with a Flying Dagger for major brutality, and then into Bombard to root the critters in place, and just take them down. It's a fairly straightforward way to go. Critters can't get to her, she takes no damage. Once one's left, I switch to the single target ability. The problem, of course, is that took a lot of stamina out of her. So I actually have to pause and wait here a little bit before we get to the crocodiles. I could have used Repentance on the crabs, but I didn't think to do it in time. So we're still waiting a bit. 84% was, I guess, good enough. Go back to the Flying Dagger for brutality, and then AoEs. I do try to work in a few heavy attacks to gain back stamina. Also that you can't immobilize things continuously. Loot the bodies, and completely forget about using Repentance, which isn't bad in this case because it wasn't down too far. The heavy attacks helped with that. Next up we have our first single boss, 100,000 hit point snake, V11. Now Bai's actually veteran rank 13, so I had been expecting she'd be able to take these things down a little quicker. And part of what I intend to do going forward is work on her build a little bit, see what I can do to beef up her damage some. You can see there the snake tried to heal. I was able to use Venom Arrow to interrupt that. That was a pretty straightforward fight, although again it tapped her out on stamina. So that's another area I'll be looking to address, either with more stamina recovery or more stamina reduction, or stamina cost reduction. More crocodiles, pretty much the same fight as the first fight with crocodiles, just waiting to get to 100 stamina. You can see how being low on resources slows you down overall. It's the same basic strategy though. Start off with a Flying Blade for the major brutality damage buff, and then into Bombard for AoE damage. I'm trying to work in some heavy attacks there to keep my stamina in better shape. And also that the heavy attacks do hit nice and heavily. And as I'm falling back, it's occurring to me that I might be falling back too far. I do remember to use Repentance there. The problem with kiting mobs, especially if you just retreat, is that you can go beyond their allowed range, at which point they leash, run back home, and heal up to full. So to kind of try a different approach, I'm experimenting with what Biting Jabs does here. I saw the cone come up, but didn't really react in time. I probably should have just dodged that. And you can see Biting Jabs does decent damage, and it interrupts the healing that the snake tried to do. But I'm winding up with taking a lot of damage. I'm down to 15 18% health there and 22% stamina. So that one fight with the snake drained both of my major resources perilously low. Thankfully I did remember to go back and repentance off the snake, which brought a bit back. Made the wait before the next fight a little briefer, which is yet another snake. Just waiting to get to 100%. Use my buffs. In this case, biting jabs counts as a buff. Lock the snake down with bombard. It's slowed, so it can't chase me that quickly. I'm using heavy attacks to get back stamina, which at 100% don't really need to do. And again, kiting back a ways and possibly running into the risk of having it leash. But fortunately I managed to kill it before then. Repentance off it. So that brings us to the Lamia fight. As we've seen before, the group of Lamia over on the right there are connected to the group of Lamia over on the left. So I know this is going to be probably the hardest fight she's been in so far. Start off with the brutality buff, switch to biting jabs for the critical buff. They're all clumped up so nicely, it's very tempting just to continue with biting jabs on them. But you can see I'm getting kind of beat up. I used Breath of Life there to get my health back, but that drained her small magic reserve out pretty quickly. I dodge rolled at one point back there for no apparent reason, and made the mistake of wandering too far. It's a little hard to see, but being chased by the little mud crabs again, in addition to having one of the Lamias still up, and you can see I'm down to 18% health, 24% stamina, 29% magic at one point. I'm really, really low on resources, 7% health, 5% health. I was able to get off a Breath of Life. I'm essentially just kiting to save my life now, and hoping I can get some resources back to do pretty much anything with. Last crab, use a heavy attack, and he's down, but that fight went a lot harder than the fights with the Sorcerer and the Magica Templar. But even with that, even with a bunch of mistakes and a build that's a bit too resource intensive, I was still able to get through it. And that's kind of the name of the game.